Resident Evil 4, Killer 7, and Devil May Cry 3.
What took you so long?
What connects all three of these games? Well, first off, they're all Capcom games. Not much of a surprise there. Second, they're all amazing titles. Say what you will about the subjective nature of games, but I find that each of these brings something new to the table while also being amazing in their own right. And last of all, they all came out in the year 2005. Resident Evil 4 and Killer 7 were part of the Capcom 5, Capcom's name for a series of 5 games meant to bolster the GameCube's lackluster third-party support. Resident Evil 4 director Shinji Mikami had overseen all 5 of the titles, so he had a hand in Killer 7. When speaking about Killer 7, the director, Suda51, said the following: "The main reason it turned out like that was because I was given the opportunity to work with Mikami-san, and I felt that Mikami wasn't just a game creator, he's almost more like an inventor. A lot of the stuff that he does isn't totally original. He doesn't just take things that others have done and make them a little bit nicer. He really creates these new things, like new ways of playing games. So it should come as no surprise that a gun named Killer 7 appears in Resident Evil 4, and the Regenerators resemble the Heaven Smile from Killer 7.
You don't want to go any further. It's dangerous. My friends are all dead. They were all murdered by people that look like this. I have been chosen."
Oh shit! There's more than 14. Those bastards are breeding.
It was all connected by Shinji Mikami, and with his direction, Resident Evil 4 made huge waves when it first came out. It was a magnificent blend of horror and action, all set in the third-person perspective. The voice acting was very tongue-in-cheek, and the gameplay was brilliant. Leon S. Kennedy was in his prime, and the game is a top-of-the-shelf classic even today. It is the best Resident Evil has to offer in the action department, and there's just a lot to love about this game. The third-person shooting was a big deal in 2005. Prior to that, the mainline Resident Evil games had the classic fixed camera that accentuated the horror aspect. In contrast, Resident Evil 4 gave power to the player by allowing them to precisely aim in third person. Even item management in the game is superb. I love managing my items in that Tetris-esque way. The characters are so fun and likable. It's a real shame we haven't seen a return to campy secret agent Leon S. Kennedy. In Resident Evil 6, he's become the joke, and in Resident Evil 2 Remake, he's just no fun. Give me back the real Leon.
Oh, la campana. Es hora de rezar. Tenemos que irnos. Lord Sattler.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Resident Evil 4 is an absolute joy to play, and my personal favorite in the series. Killer 7 is the high-octane, artsy, and experimental game from Suda51. It's a badass roller coaster of a ride that challenges the player in its unpredictable storyline, unconventional controls, as well as its dark and deep subject matter. When I first played the game, it showed me what video games could be as an art form. There are moments in the game that are absolutely unforgettable. Some of my favorite moments in the medium are from this very game. I can't help but love Killer 7 in all its esoteric and artsy glory. The game exemplifies thinking outside of the box. It's still on the cutting edge when it comes to sheer creativity and relentless iconoclasm. A timeless tribute to punk rock game design, as Suda51 puts it. Just don't read the cringy, poorly written GameSpot attack piece on him. It's terrible. It's one of the worst articles I've ever read. Or maybe you should, just for the heck of it. Anyway, Killer 7 is such a unique game that even Grasshopper Manufacturer can't deliver anything else like it after more than 17 years past its release. I'm still waiting for a true return to form from Suda, but I don't think it will ever come to fruition. There was that Dan Smith scene in Travis Strikes Again, but I can't help but feel that it fails to live up to the legacy of the original, and it's merely an illusion of what could have been. It also feels a bit cheesy to tie No More Heroes with Killer 7, especially post No More Heroes 1. It's just a sad state of affairs that Suda51 can't make anything like his earlier works after what is essentially his magnum opus in Killer 7. Sadly, it's a game that never got the acclaim it deserved, and now falls under the category of cult classic. Regardless, it's a game that I don't think I'll ever not be fascinated by. Devil May Cry 3, on the other hand, was Hideaki Itsuno's big breakthrough hit after being the replacement director for the disastrous Devil May Cry 2. He essentially saved the series with this release. And why is that? Well, he knew exactly what made the first Devil May Cry so great. People love Devil May Cry 1 for Dante's nonchalant, too cool for school personality, the combo-based gameplay, and the badass music. So what did Itsuno do for the third title? Well, he amped it all up to 11. Dante became the woohoo pizza guy that did crazy cool guy things while enjoying life to the fullest. Just watch this scene.
Are you going to the party? What's the hurry? Didn't you get an invitation?
And this isn't just some case of flanderization or anything. He's still serious when it really matters, and since it's a prequel, we understand that Dante's still working towards becoming his more composed self that we see in the later titles. It's clear that Itsuno has passion for his work, and I wouldn't have anyone else act as lead for the series now that he's proven himself. Devil May Cry 3 took what worked in the first title and refined it to an art. All the cutscenes are an absolute joy to watch, and I love the drama between Dante and Virgil. It's so well fleshed out through the dialogue and gameplay. Dante has the most character development from the series in this title, and I still think this game has the best story in the series. Had it ended with 3, I would have been satisfied with how it concluded in an artistic sense. As a fan, however, I can't help but smile seeing how things have panned out in the later titles. Essentially, what we have here are these landmarks of game design that came out in the same year, coming from the same company. Resident Evil 4 provided the modern framework for the third-person shooter genre, Killer 7 became a completely unique cult classic that put Suda51 on the map, and Devil May Cry 3 vastly improved the formula established from the first title. Each of these has contributed substantially to the way the gaming scene has evolved, and on a personal level, they're some of my favorite games of all time. I haven't even mentioned how great the voice acting is yet. This was a moment in gaming where the voice acting was wild. Killer 7 has so much personality in how the characters are portrayed. The voice actors do such a great job portraying a whole range of great and iconic characters.
The name's Andre Almeida. I am a man with a plan. The people will come to me for salvation. I have a hunch that something's gonna happen. Take this Stacy concert going on right here. Something very bad is gonna happen here. You ever met the kind of people that come to these Stacy concerts? These dudes have got energy to spare. We're talking guys who beat off 4 times a day. This is an epicenter of energy, man. But this Stacy they love, she's an illusion. But in the new age, there's no fooling them, no sir. They won't be tricked by illusions anymore. Oh my God, I can't hold back. Oh God, I'm coming. Yeah! Woo! See, I told you, this is real.
Without the voice acting, the characters wouldn't be nearly as memorable, and this goes for Devil May Cry and Resident Evil as well. Dante's wacky jokes and iconic lines are pretty much living rent-free in my mind. And Leon's one-liners are hilarious and fit the B-movie vibe the whole game gives off. It was essentially lightning in a bottle. I absolutely love these 3 games, and if Capcom were able to release such high-quality games every few years, they would easily be the greatest game company ever. However, this golden era would not last. Of course, Itsuno would eventually further elevate the series with Devil May Cry 5, but not before the pretty good but incomplete Devil May Cry 4, and Capcom sending the series into limbo with DMC Devil May Cry.
My name, by the way, is
Shinji Mikami would leave Capcom in 2006 to work for Platinum, and then Tango Gameworks afterwards. Grasshopper Manufacturer would move on to other cool and interesting things, but without Capcom's involvement. Essentially, after this point in time, Capcom would make mistake after mistake, resulting in the loss of major talent as well as faith in the Devil May Cry series. Despite what the future held for Capcom, these 3 titles make 2005 the greatest year for gaming, bar none. At least in my opinion. Devil May Cry 3 is an amazing game I still go back to every now and then. Resident Evil 4 is an absolute masterpiece of game design, and Killer 7 is my all-time favorite game. I find it hard to come by any other year that rivals the greatness of 2005, and I'm amazed that such groundbreaking games would all be tied to a single company. In support of 2005 as the best year for gaming, I haven't even mentioned Shadow of the Colossus, Psychonauts, Dragon Quest VIII, Soul Calibur 3, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Shin Megami Tensei Digital Double Saga 1 and 2, Ninja Gaiden Black, Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow, Need for Speed Most Wanted, The First Fear, and God of War. All great games in their own right that I would love to talk about in detail someday. Though I have talked about Shadow of Colossus in one of my first videos. Let me know what your favorite year for gaming was down in the comments. I'd love to know what your opinion is on the subject. And now in the year 2022, we're all blessed by the gaming gods and Capcom to be able to play all 3 games freely. Resident Evil 4 has been ported everywhere, and as blasphemous as it is to say, my favorite port is the Wii version. You can play Devil May Cry 3 in the HD collection on Steam or PSN. It's also on the Nintendo Switch with the ability to switch styles in the middle of battle, which is badass to say the least. And finally, Killer 7 has an excellent remaster on Steam. To be able to play all 3 of these games so freely nowadays is something I'm grateful for. It wasn't long ago since Blizzard wiped Overwatch 1 off the face of the earth and replaced it with the sequel. It's just sad that we won't be able to play the original unless Activision Blizzard decides to give it back to us. For now, I'm just glad that Capcom was willing to provide us with such great remasters of these amazing games. Capcom was amazing during the mid-2000s, it's too bad they fell off not long after that. Regardless, it was very surprising to me that 2005 was such a monumental year in gaming. Thanks for watching. I'm back after a year of hiatus. Things have been weird lately, so I'm glad I've been able to make a return after all this time. Anyway, I'll see you all next time when I talk in depth about Suda51's approach to thinking of new ideas while on the toilet.